What's going on? This your man Chris Powell, aka the Couch Coach from the Couch Coach Live podcast, and we are here and we're debuting some new content here on Couch Coach Live podcast, and it's gonna be titled Spider Bites. Yes, so don't think about it from on the situation of a spider bite that could be potential to your health, but they got more so of a sense of hey, Spider Bites is essentially a short form content talking about University of Richmond football in bite-sized portions. So think about it like that. So don't think about it more so in the sense of hey, this of a spider bite, but more so of hey, bite-sized content talking about the University of Richmond football. So without further ado, let's go into our first episode here on Spider Bites, where we'll be previewing University of Richmond's matchup versus UVA. This is a game that's going to tip off a kickoff. I'm thinking basketball, but hey, it's gonna kick off Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Scott Stadium down in Charlottesville. So the University of Richmond will take a quick road trip 64 West to go to Charlottesville and face the Cavaliers. Obviously, we know the Cavaliers are a Power 4 team out of the Atlantic Coast Conference, and University of Richmond will kick off their 141st season. And with this matchup with UVA, this series dates back to 1893, where UVA has won 30 of the 35 matchups between these two teams. The last time that the University of Richmond won in this series was in 2016. So going into this matchup, you have when I think about the quarterback matchups, obviously with UVA, last Saturday they did name their starting quarterback in Anthony Calandria. Last year, a true freshman, had nearly 2,000 yards passing. He had he had 12 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He had some great games versus JMU in his first start. 377 passing yards in that game. Louisville, he had 314 passing yards. And then the following week, in a win over Duke, he had 278 yards passing. So he showed some great improvement as the year went on, and he definitely deserves essentially that QB1 on the depth chart for the Cavaliers at this point. And obviously, and let's talk about the University of Richmond and their quarterbacks. Coach Russ Huseman didn't state who was going to be QB1 in that matchup on Saturday. So it's going to be to be determined. So there's two guys that are essentially in contention for the QB1 spot. We'll talk about Camden Coleman. Last year was a freshman. He had 1,161 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, while Kyle Wickersham had 1,405 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. If it's between the two, if I'm a betting man, it's probably going to be the latter, where I think Kyle Wickersham probably will be the starting quarterback. We'll see on Saturday, potentially. And the only reason why I think he could potentially will be QB1 is his ability to scramble. He had 402 net rush yards last season, so I definitely think he can add an extra dimension to this team, especially considering the fact of the question marks at the running back position. So I definitely think he can kind of give them somewhat of some flexibility potentially, or just give them somewhat of another threat in that run game. So I definitely think he will be QB1 on Saturday versus UVA. Some keys, and some more so, not keys necessarily, but more so just some playmakers to watch in this matchup. I think when you look at UVA, I think you look at Chris Tyree, obviously the transfer from Notre Dame. And if you're from the Richmond, Virginia area, that name probably sounds familiar because he did go to Thomas Dale a few years back. So he comes back essentially home after being at Notre Dame, pretty much his whole entire college career. So now he'll come back home, and he'll definitely add a different dimension to UVA's offense. And I think some matchups to watch, not necessarily a matchup, but I think some units that that you can watch for University of Virginia, where you have their defensive line. Essentially, all their defensive linemen are back. All four of those guys are back. You look at essentially their experience is going to be key in this, especially in this matchup and throughout the year for the Cavs. You look at that out there, their unit of four, they've combined for 162 games, 111 starts, and 34 sacks. And then you also look at their offensive line. You look at 3 of their 5 linemen have played all 12 games last year for UVA, also including Brian Stevens, who was a honorable mention All ACC member. So you look at that for UVA, where their trenches are pretty much solidified, especially in a matchup of this caliber. I think that's going to bode really huge for University of Virginia. And then you look at on University of Richmond side, the playmakers that they have on their end. You look at none other than Nick DeGennaro. Fantastic year last year. 71 catches, 904 yards. He's essentially on everybody's FCS, essentially awards list. He's going to be one that will definitely be in the mix for a lot of potentially postseason awards just due to his output last year. He was spectacular. Almost was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. And then also you look at on defensively for the University of Richmond, Wayne Galloway. He's the inside linebacker. He's pretty much going to be essentially the leader. He's a captain on this team. He'll definitely will pretty much carry the torch for this University of Richmond's defense. So those are kind of the guys who I'm looking forward to this matchup. A few keys that I definitely think potentially can work in UVA's favor. Obviously, I think the experience of the trenches that's definitely help them. You do have that Calandria aspect at the quarterback position. I think he could definitely do some things. And it's kind of curious how that's going to work out. But I think one of the keys, if Richmond was to essentially pull out that upset, can they be opportunistic defensively like they were last year? They pretty much had 5 defensive touchdowns last year that led the league at that time in defensive touchdowns. And then also they had 26 takeaways. I think one of the keys in this situation, can they get turnovers from Calandria? Can they kind of keep him, in that pocket, kind of condense that pocket for him and force him to make some bad throws and get some turnovers? And I think that could be potentially, if University of Richmond was to win this game, it would definitely be on this defense potentially to make some plays and to kind of force some turnovers to give University of Richmond some opportunities to score and move the football. But I think in this matchup, I definitely think, I know a lot of people, I've been looking at some, obviously fans, analysts, people who covers the teams. A lot of people looking at this, and obviously in this matchup, UVA is a 19-point favorite. So I think if how I have it kind of stand up, I definitely think that UVA will win this football game. I look at it, I don't necessarily think it's going to be a 19-point game. I think it's probably going to be closer than a lot of people think. So I got UVA winning by the final score of 34-21. So I have them with a 13-point lead. Yes, and this now wraps up our Spider Bite segment here on Couch Coach Live. Don't forget to follow us on social media anywhere social media, Couch Coach Live, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram there as well. And also check out the website, couchcoachlive.com. And we'll catch you guys on our next episode of Spider Bites. And we're out.